Anyway,
Let's wing it.
let's do it. Your event is starting. And we're live. What is up, guys? How you doing? It is Sunday, the 12th of November. And oh man, it's been a tiring day. This is the Snappy-Tech podcast number 19 with our amazing
Yep.
guest, Benjamin Abunimanya.
It's Abuaji for the record.
I spent the
Let's do
entire
it.
day
Your
being
event
oh,
is
hang-
start.
whoops. I spent the entire day being like, do I try to pronounce his surname or do I make that joke? And clearly that joke is the idea of it won out.
But yes, for the audience that will watch this back and are watching now, it's Abuaji. 3 syllables. Abuaji.
Perfect. So, before we get into this, to tell us about you. You know, we met at the Razer event, and the last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
both of our guests have been Razer event related. But
Yeah.
you know, we had a great conversation. Tell us about your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is called Lover of Tech, aka LOT Reviews. Yeah, definitely tech related, tech orientated. So the main things I'm definitely into are mobile tech, consumer tech, PC gaming. So there's PC gaming on the channel as well. And yeah, I'm looking to hopefully incorporate more PC elements of stuff in there. But yeah, that's my channel. Pretty much started the channel last year,
Right.
but really started to like take it seriously like the past 4 or 5 months of this year. So based in London, North London specifically, and yeah, that's my YouTube channel. So yeah, follow Lover of Tech if you want to see regular videos. I pretty much do minimum 1 video, 2 videos a week. Posted a video today, so
Go check that out.
yeah, check it out.
But
Check it out for
after
sure.
you've watched this podcast, because we're live right now.
Yeah, we're live
Unless you're
now.
watching this recorded, but either way, just wait roughly an hour and then go watch it. He'll remind you at the end of the podcast. Don't worry.
Definitely.
However, let's get into the week's news, and I want to start off with the Intel news,
Yeah.
purely because Andre in the chat has brought it up. He said, "I saw the thumbnail about Intel, and I was like, WTF?" And let's discuss this because, you know, from my point of view, which probably isn't Intel's point of view, it's a little bit funny, but not in a good way. It's like,
Vulnerabilities.
yeah, it's like the kind of hilarious where you laugh at it from a distance, but you kind of wish you didn't have to,
Yeah.
right? So Intel installed this thing called the Intel Management Engine. It's basically
Yeah,
a
the IME.
CPU that runs on top of your CPU to control your CPU. Don't ask. Intel thought it was a good idea, and clearly that meant it had to happen. The issue with it being that it runs independently to the actual processor, and it then can also run with the computer powered off. Now,
That's crazy.
which is the crazy part to me as well, right? Like, imagine it being like, oh yeah, my computer's off, but it still can do whatever the hell it wants, right?
So it's like it's a proprietary always on system,
In
effectively.
essence, yeah. And it is the layer between the CPU and the hardware as well.
Right.
And what's ended up happening here is that there have been theories that the IME could be hacked, and at this point we'd be screwed because there's nothing you can do to change it. Right?
Because it's on a hardware level.
It's a physical component that you can't disable. You can disable it, but it's enabled by default, and unless you know how to use BIOS and to dig around in the settings, you can't disable it. And so for the last 9 years, I guess, you know what, 9 years in this day and age is a pretty decent amount of time to have it secured for, I guess.
Yeah, true. With just how things just get released, left, right, center, just for the
Man.
sake of it.
But yeah, so for the past 9 years, it's been all well and good. It's been a hypothetical hack. However, this week, that hypothetical became practical,
Yeah.
and a group of security researchers have been able to inject code into the Intel Management Engine via USB. Now, when I say via USB, what I mean is this is a USB hack. This is just a
Okay.
hack that happens to be over USB. That's how they communicate with the IME. If
Yeah.
it was over Ethernet port, for example, it would work with that as well. It's not a USB vulnerability. It's to do with the JTAG, or the Joint Test Action Group. ports. So it's basically a debugging port that tends to be tied to USB. And it's let people, infect CPUs with whatever code they want, and there's nothing you can do about it because it's on a sub CPU level, I guess.
But my take on it is just based on just common sense. If the thing is a proprietary based, always on hardware device, whether it's on top or underneath or it's a layer interface, that makes sense. If something is always on and it can't be turned off, that means there's always got power and access to be accessed.
Yes.
So, whatever's theory, in the end, someone is going to be curious enough. And that's just how human beings are. Human beings are curious enough to always want to challenge and push boundaries.
Yeah.
So companies hire people, hackers, to hack whatever program or whatever infrastructure they have, so they know the vulnerabilities to improve it later on, and they get rewarded as hackers doing that.
Yeah.
So if that's what companies do, why would someone just, not for the sake of curiosity and just pushing boundaries, want to be able to do the same thing? And it's the same thing as jailbreaking. Like, the jailbreaking community has gone really, really quiet lately for iOS, but that's what it was based on. Those jailbreakers weren't getting any money for it. It was just a curious challenge for them that built a community of how can we actually break this down to get more out of it that they don't want us to have more of. So yeah. I think for Intel, it should wake them up, into thinking about how, security and vulnerabilities will get handled, especially on a hardware level, because when it gets deep down,
you can't patch this. It's a hardware issue.
Yeah.
Which isn't a software fix, a software update away.
Nah. This is a whole physical hardware issue, and it's then also now questioning. It brings another question to how Intel practices in terms of marketing and product releasing anyway, with this whole motherboard platform changes and TikTok cycle that they are doing and not doing anymore. That do you need an always on system? That really brings up a question that I'm thinking that in itself just sounded stupid to me the minute I read it and I saw it. I was like, why would you create something like this? Why? So,
and it is worth noting that chances are your system is technically always powered anyway, right? A lot of motherboards tend to have charge ports, right? USB ports that are powered even if your PC's turned off, specifically for plugging in your phone and charging it or whatever.
Yeah.
However, that is a single USB port that just gets power and it sort of sips off a power supply. This thing had complete control over hardware devices whilst the PC was shut down. And
that's the thing.
And crazier still, it's not like this used to happen, and if you have a new CPU, you're fine. If you have anything after 2008, you're screwed. So basically most Intel CPUs at this point.
Yep. That's the question. You see, so it's not having power to it and it's still being able to operate. That's the scary part. You see, that's the scary part. Yeah. So you shouldn't have that level of access, even from what we see on TV shows with how NSA and police can track your mobile devices.
Oh, I'm waiting for a conspiracy theory that states that the only reason Intel used the IME is so the NSA can spy on you, like 24/7.
And the thing is, it's just the world that we live in now. You can't really take stuff like that for granted. It could be the case, but my point is, even they have limitations to when there's no power and no access to that particular product. There's no way of them really tracking you unless it's at that last point. So to have something like this on a hardware level, that to me is the main issue. It literally potentially on a permanent level leaves you vulnerable 120% of the time. If someone wants to exploit it, whether you're an enemy of the state or not, someone just wants to have. Yeah, and that's the questionable part where this IME system just really it just didn't, and especially if it's something over like a universal serial bus protocol to be able to access the hardware to do that, that worries me, because that's just a common thing that everyone gets or uses. So if you put it into like a real world situation now, someone could like, you know, use you as a vulnerable situation where you've got a USB that you think it's safe to use in any given way, shape or form. You put it into your computer, bang, access.
And it's worth mentioning that USB isn't that secure anyway, right?
It isn't it, and it's not meant to be because it's an open standard, right?
Yeah, and it's, you know, the things you can do with a USB stick is crazy. Like, just 2 minutes of access to a PC and a USB stick. You know, if you have Ubuntu on it, for example, I've done this once. It was, hang on, what's the legal disclaimer? It was for research purposes, and I was completely authorized to do it. That's what I was going for. It wasn't used maliciously, and it was on my own device. Where I had Ubuntu on a USB stick, I went in, and there's basically Windows on the PC, on the hard drive, but I didn't have a password for it, the admin password. So I stuck Ubuntu on USB stick, went in, switched the executables for sticky keys and command prompt.
Yeah.
So and then you just hit control. You then boot back into Windows, hit control a bunch of times, and instead of getting the little sticky keys prompt, you get command prompt. And because you're not logged in, you get root access. So you know, we go into there, and then you can disable or change or do whatever you want to passwords for any account at that point. So we create a new admin account, or actually in this case, we just change the admin password to password, and and then you have free reign of the OS, and that takes 2 minutes in a USB stick.
That's my point. So if as straightforward and slightly sophisticated or unsophisticated that was, you can do that. That's the main issue there. That is the main issue there. Like that kind of on hardware level vulnerability can't be fixed with even a firmware update. You can't, you know. So I just question on a security level why they would feel so comfortable to have to link, you know, such an interface if it's that layer in between where the CPU is built. Yeah, it's behaving as an interface basically.
Yeah, and I want to know why Intel sees it as so important. That's like, surely there's not, like, is there anything this is being used for that isn't just ridiculous?
That's where now it's like you said, waiting for that conspiracy theory to say.
I can't wait. And any day now, it's gonna happen, and it's gonna be perfect.
Because it must be for more than just monitoring purposes, you know. It must be. It must. With it. Yeah, and that's where for me that's the questionable part, you know, and it's almost like literally maximizing on the fact that because they've been, if we're talking about 2008, that was 9 years ago from then, they're basically maximizing on the fact that they're pretty much the only chip maker that people are buying.
Yeah,
and people were buying.
And Skylake was more or less the generation that really cemented it, because that was when sort of AMD started to crumble as such.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just as though getting a stranglehold on the industry. They're like, "Oh, cool, let's do whatever the hell we want now." Like,
yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah,
it's just crazy. It actually reminds me. I think we might have mentioned this a couple of podcasts ago. I can't remember, but we mentioned the OnePlus tracking. So
I was actually just about to touch on that.
The way they were tracking their phones, which was crazy. Where they just had like a full list of everything you did, and like timestamped and the device IMEI and everything.
Yeah.
And that is creepy. Like, and there's no way of opting out of it without again root access and disabling the APK. Yeah.
And this is exactly where now I'm pointing to, based on it must be on that level. You know, there must be now, to build it in, they must be securely grabbing heavy level information like this. Must be. And that just worries me, because it's just like consumerism has just gone so high in terms of, you know, it's like they know this is what people want. We build the device for them, but they won't look deeper into these things that might actually, you know, go against their security, you know, because it's literally like, because we're not I don't know, we're not like enemies of the state, or we're not going to cause any problems per se, it doesn't really bother us. We're still
Yeah.
going to, just do it. And it's not right, but it just shows how things have just been transitioned in terms of like more accessibility, reduction in privacy.
Do you reckon there's going to be an Equifax style hack here? That's my concern, right? So Equifax,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
someone will go into OnePlus and just pull all of the information off from all the devices, and they just go, "Hey, look, this is what people are doing with their phones. OnePlus had it all conveniently on a database with a password 1234."
yeah. No. I can see that happening. Put it this way: Yahoo got hacked, and they don't even know the extent of the hack.
Oh man, Yahoo
Yeah,
was a field day. It was.
yeah,
They prioritized design over security, which was stupid in itself. And then their chief security officer told them like stuff was going south, and Marissa Meyer didn't care. And it was just like,
yeah.
really, like, come on.
And this is what I'm talking about, based on they're capitalizing on what people want on a surface level, and they're just literally disregarding what their privacy and the importance of their privacy is to them.
Yeah.
So where in the past you'd be like, you just assume because it's a big company or it's a company of some sort that will have security down. I don't I don't give many companies the benefit of the doubt when it comes to security now. If you're not careful with it and you don't take it enough as a priority, you can get hacked, and it can be serious. You see, so this
and it's
is
increasingly more frequent. That's the crazy part.
Yeah,
it's
that's the
happening
thing.
more and more.
That's the thing. So just as an advance warning, don't be surprised if you hear something like that has actually happened with OnePlus.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, any second now.
I won't. And for me, I don't think it. I know it sounds so strange. I don't think it hurt their brand image that much. It didn't.
No,
the honest
it
truth,
didn't.
it didn't.
I think, who was it? Someone had something similar. Oh, what was it? There was a company that had like a major breach, and the tech industry was going crazy about it, but no one outside of that knew about it, right? And who was it?
So VW had a problem with CO2 emissions
There was that too.
with their cars.
That happened.
There was that
as well.
too. That didn't hurt their brand. They still sell cars through their. So it just shows that when companies see stuff like that, they feel justified in their actions and how they were behaving, because they don't really get boycotted.
And consumers are so quick to forget as well. Uber.
Oh, very.
That was one. The word boycott triggered it. Uber there was like boycott Uber happening on Twitter. There was like 500,000 tweets about it or something like that with the hashtag boycott Uber. For like 2 days, they had like really low traffic, and then it was fine. And then it basically completely came back to 100%.
Yeah.
And so it shows that, consumers have this really short memory when it comes to bad PR.
100%, 100% agree. So I can foresee something like that happening. 100% foresee something like that happening, and just I don't know. Just privacy is a very, very questionable thing at the minute. Very, very questionable thing at the minute.
So I just want to double check when this video came out. I think it was just over a week ago, on the 5th. Oh, a week. It probably came out just after the podcast. Have you seen? Because I want to just slowly transition towards hardware, but we were mentioning the reputation of companies, and I feel like this advert was just so good that I can't help but bring it up. Did you see the Samsung advert that came out last week?
Yeah.
It was just so good. I should stress, I don't mean so good as in it was a good advert. I mean so good as in I was watching it and laughing. Partially at Apple, but also at Samsung.
Yeah.
But they thought it was a good idea. Like, that was the bit I found funny.
Yeah, same. I was in two minds about that. Because I was speaking to my wife about this, and I always question companies that dig at another company on that level, because it almost like, what is that saying about you now? One, but the quality of the ad was on point,
Oh,
like how it was shot.
it was so hilarious.
The guy with the top,
with the haircut,
I was like, you know what,
the notch haircut.
that just, I was like, you guys have literally got balls of steel to do that.
That was so that was the moment that sold it for me. Like,
Yeah.
I was finding it okay, and then I saw the guy with like the notch haircut, and I was like, this is great.
It's like,
this is how I know it's a good ad.
Yeah, it's. I was just like, this is quality and this is funny, and it does. There's a lot of element in there where you're thinking, they are right, that people don't realize how much they're being shortchanged, but they put up with it just because of being part of whatever the Apple wave is. But then at the same time, it's like, you roasting another company doesn't almost look good on you, because then it's like it could open up rooms for your mistakes that you've done.
I can imagine, like, Huawei, for example, coming out tomorrow with an advert against Samsung, like, just for the hell of it, right?
Yeah.
Just to sort of feed that cycle. Do you know what this is? This is Samsung's equivalent of dropping a diss track.
Yeah, it is.
This is a tech diss track.
It is a full on, like, not even like partially, like, it's full on to the extent where it's just like,
we need Apple to reply to this with a bunch of Samsung phones catching fire or something like that, right?
Apple used to do that
like
back in the day.
Samsung games catching fire, right? Like,
honestly, it could, and that's like Apple. Don't get me wrong. Apple are not, a company where they've not done stuff like this. The whole Mac versus PC thing in Windows, they've been equally as bad. They've been equally as bad. So it's not like they are an exception to not doing stuff like that. But I always question companies that feel the need that they need to, not comparing is easy. Like, you do a comparison to whatever another company is doing, that's easy. But when you take like big shots and digs like this, it kind of brings up a question about, what is it about you that you feel insecure about, that you don't want people to see that you need to mock someone else,
Yeah, and
it almost seems a bit salty to an extent, even though it's well executed. The execution was perfect.
Oh man, it's so good. But the thing that really gets me is the Pixel adverts, right? So last year, the original Pixel had the headphone jack dig, which wasn't specifically at Apple, but it was, in their general direction. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had the whole headphone jack, surprisingly not new. And then this year with the Pixel 2, where's the headphone jack, guys? Where is it? Huh? Tell me. Huh?
I'm so glad you brought that up, right? Because
Sundar Pichai, I'm waiting for this damn headphone jack. Where is it? I was promised a headphone jack.
Like, the whole way Google approached the headphone jack, it was, when I say it was so bad that basically they made Apple justified, and not only justified, they made Apple look like the better company for doing it, right? And I'm gonna tackle a couple of points on this.
Go for it.
With Apple, however silly the reason was, or questionable the reason was, of courage, they actually took time in the keynote, addressed the elephant in the room. They talked about it. They gave some form of legitimate reason based on the Taptic engine and ingress protection with IP68. They took time.
Don't give them too much credit.
67, yeah, cool. So like, but my point is, they took time, and I'm not trying to like defend Apple. This is me not defending them, because I already have watched all my reviews. I've already discussed lots of reasons why.
Oh, he's such an Apple fanboy, guys. You'd love it.
Yeah, just remember that, But they said, we're gonna give you the adapter in the box. We're gonna give you Lightning AirPods that are gonna be in the box. So it actually makes it a bit easier for you to transition.
Yeah.
If you're saying it's an old port, give me 2 lightning ports so I can charge and listen
That
to
was
music at the same
that
time.
was what we were
That's
discussing
my
on the podcast, right? It's
yeah.
the same with USB-C. Just stick one on either side.
Just
Like, come on,
give
one
me
on the top,
two.
one on the bottom, and we're good to go here, man.
Yeah, then and that's it. But then it's like, actually, well, then what we're gonna do is a third thing is we're gonna give you true wireless earbuds that work this way. So you're like, okay, you know what? You are at least cushioning it more. Google now kind of just literally like, yeah, just use your adapter. No USB Type C earbuds. You didn't take time out to discuss anything. You've pretty much made USB Type C audio even more fragmented than before, right? And for the same price, you bring out earbuds as good as they are that are not truly wireless.
But you know what? I prefer. Hang on, I think I have them in my pocket. Oh, I don't. I think they're down. Nope, they're downstairs. Oh wait, no, they're not. No, yeah, they are.
He's
These are my
digging
other
through.
headphones. I was traveling for 12 hours today, and I have my Jaybird X3s, and
Yeah.
I love them. They're great. They're downstairs, unfortunately. However, the battery on those lasts like 8 hours, and I needed it. I needed 12 hours worth of audio, so I had these with me as well. Some JVC Extreme Explosives. They're like £12. I really love them, like for the price. They're quite hard to beat. So I end up buying a pair of these like every 6 months or something. So because I'll always like gift them to someone or like lose them. So there's no point buying anything more expensive.
Yeah.
And then for most audio listening, I just have the Jaybird headphones, and those are great. And I prefer having that wire between them because I had some truly wireless headphones, and then I dropped one in the middle of a road and got run over by a car. So I decided against that one at that point.
No, but that's a justified reason not to have it. But it's like, again, they've made Apple look like the better company because with it, and they addressed it at the keynote when the iPhone 7 was announced, right? That if you don't want the AirPods, we will have wireless, wired Bluetooth headphones that are going to be cheaper called Beats X that you can get as an alternative. So they covered all grounds to make sure that them removing this headphone port, they are fully justified.
Yeah.
Google didn't do that. Google did not bother. And then they had the cheek to actually charge £20 or $20 for the USB Type-C. You know, so it's like Apple's already playing a worse game, but they're playing it better. Now you're playing an even worse game when you're supposedly having a platform that shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
You know, so this is where, for me, I'm going to be on record to say this. Like, I'm not part of this I love stock Android group. I'm just not a stock Android fan.
Yeah.
I've tried to convince myself with, whether you want to call it the convincing things that you have to say as a reviewer over and over again, that give me stock Android, give me stock Android. I've just never been a fan of stock Android, right? So for me, the price that the Google Pixel was coming at, and I know the end user experience is software, it's just too much.
It's just too much.
It's just too much. I know the end user experience is always down to the software day to day, fine. But for that price and the complete package, and with all the problems that they've been having, for me, I just don't find stock Android that worth it enough to pay that price just to be like, I want a clean Android experience.
Yeah.
You know, that's I'm just speaking for me. I'm speaking for me.
Absolutely.
The only, and this is why I still want to get the Pixel 2 to have it on the channel to use.
2 or 2XL?
Whoa.
It's an interesting question, right?
It's such a I can't even answer it. The reason why I can't answer it is the design of the Pixel 2, although improved from the Pixel 1 last year, that design looks so outdated because I did hands-on for both of them, and I did a video on the channel and stuff. That design is so outdated, but yet the AMOLED panel on there is really, really good, and it fits really, really nice in the hand when you're holding that phone. Whereas,
and it's like £130 cheaper.
Exactly, right. So
that actually, I found that really interesting. The fact they were pushing the internals are identical.
Nah,
kind of deal, right? That I
nah,
was okay with until they said it was £130 more for
nah.
a 2XL. Like,
Uh, I, I question that element of what they were talking about in terms of, pick whichever size you like, you get the same features.
mm,
No, you don't. You're only talking about the camera, and this is what I'm already seeing. The saving grace for Google is just the fact that the camera is that good.
oh, it is
Although I've not
gorgeous.
tested it, the camera is that good. That is the phone's only saving grace at the minute, next to stock Android, just because there's a big kind of like, you know, I don't want to say worship, but there's a big appreciation for how great stock Android is.
Yeah.
Which in my eyes, I've said it before that I've not found it great because it's lacked a lot of things that I've had on skinned Android experiences that I've not had on stock, just for the sake of a clean operating system.
Yeah.
That term gets used a lot, which almost gets on my nerves a lot more than it should. But I do respect it. I do understand it. It is the foundation to how Android operates. So that is the only saving grace. Apart from that, for me, that is a phone that is a year and a half behind the competition. That's my opinion for Google. And I kind of understand, because they did make it clear that hardware is not their aim anymore. So
Yeah.
they kind of pretty much
It's the
expressed
whole,
it.
you're right. It's the thing where it's not the most powerful phone. It's the
Yeah.
smartest phone.
Yeah. So they're going for that. So I kind of like say, you know what, at least they address the fact that they are more of an artificial intelligence software based company, which shows in how the cameras operate, which I feel like they operate on pure witchcraft, because
Oh my
how
god, it is crazy, right? It is ridiculous. I cannot believe it. And it's not even just on the Pixels. If you pull the Google app and port it onto like the LG V30, for example, pictures on that look gorgeous as well. HDR Plus is basically witchcraft.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And I'll say, at least they addressed it. But there's another YouTuber, a big guy, Jerry Rig, everything, Zach.
Yeah,
He does all
Zach's
the
great.
burn tests, and
The fact that no
the
one
pics-
knows he's called Zach is great as well. Like I
and that's the best
almost
thing.
love that more.
That's the best
You
thing.
see people calling him Jerry, and I'm like, nope, that's not his name.
No, it's not his name. His name is Zach. But the Pixel 2, in my eyes, failed miserably because it has that same
The snap.
antenna band
Yeah.
weak point that the iPhone 6 had. So then it clearly shows that you are pretty much paying for a piece of plastic.
Yeah.
So even just basic principle of build quality, they haven't even bothered. They don't, to me, care enough. And by the way, if you still want to work with me after hearing this, I do not mind. I'm just critiquing.
Yeah,
just so
what we're
you
doing
know,
here is being honest, right? If
we're just being honest.
yeah, if I
know.
feel like I got this out of the way during the Conquer video, and we had we've had Huawei send us phones before, and
Okay.
Honor as well, and we've said, right, we're very grateful that they sent us the phones for free, and they were like, yeah, do whatever you want with it, but if we find something bad with it, we will say it, because then there's no point doing the review if all you say is good things.
Yeah. So it's more just based on the fact that they're saving graces. I question software just because of preference.
Yeah.
But their artificial intelligence, their camera performance, and their
It is next
battery
level.
life, the battery life optimization, it's been every single drain test that I've seen, especially the 2XL, the XL just had battery for days. You see,
Interestingly,
so
the only phone that's beaten is the LG V30,
yeah,
which is
it's true.
cool. And again,
Yeah.
it's kind of expected because they're both made by LG, right?
Yeah,
LG
exactly.
made the 2XL,
Yeah.
which it's basically the same, just in a different shell. What I will point out is this is really controversial. I just want to point out, and if you use this as your sole reference point for how good a camera is, don't. But DxOMark dropped their iPhone 10 rating, and it's actually 97 to the Pixel's 98.
And Marquez Brownlee, Mr.
He did
MKBHD,
he did a great breakdown.
Yeah, that was one of the video even went trending because I just knew that video would trend just because of the fact that it was so controversial. But funny enough, the sub score of the iPhone 10 is actually the highest on any smartphone. You know how he broke it down about the overall score is very deceptive unless you look into the sub scores of each
Yeah.
phone. The iPhone 10 has the highest sub score of 102, if I remember right, and he tweeted it.
So I'm looking at them right now. The Pixel
Yeah.
2 has 99 for photo and 96 for video.
Mm-hmm.
The iPhone 10 has 101 for photo and 89
There
for
we go.
video.
There we go. So the sub score, this is what Marquez was talking about.
Yeah.
That they plague on this thing of punching out an overall score that makes it seem like it's out of 100 when it's not. And then people don't actually look at DxOMark's website because they don't promote it. It's just too much jargon and stuff to actually realize that there's sub scores of stuff what's going on. So what was great about his breakdown was the fact that he didn't diss their methodology because he said they're legit. You know, they like
Yeah, no,
the
it's
labs.
repeatable and
Yeah.
they go full out with it.
Yeah, you know, but where there's question marks and where there's that gray area and that gray line is they are also a consulting agency. So whoever's paying more, who's to say that they're not getting more favorable results if that is true or not?
Yeah.
And it's like you can't call them out on it because the methodology of how they do their testing is so thorough that it's now, you know, you can see where the lines blur. You see, so this is where it's like, be careful with DxOMark. They are a legit company, especially with all the other camera companies and channels that I follow. They really reference to them in terms of mirrorless camera testing, digital single lens reflex cameras, DSLR cameras and stuff. So they're legit, but just be careful in that overall score because that overall score is deceptive. And it's the way he said it that, you know, although the Pixel has, you know, the better overall score, which phone would you prefer, the Pixel or the Note 8 when it came to like, you know, portrait shots?
Yeah.
Actually, it will be the Note 8 because there's two hardware cameras working with dual optical image stabilization that gives you much more thorough control to actually do stuff. So actually, you looking at that, you know, you won't necessarily enjoy that much portrait shots with the Pixel 2. You know, so it's I don't know.
What I find interesting is wrong tab. I'm looking at them right now, right? So the Pixel 2, as I said, has a photo score of 99, and the iPhone 10, has 101. This is it's just going to be called the X. I'm sorry, it's just going to happen.
Yep.
Looking at the scores and the breakdown, interestingly, the Pixel 2 actually has higher highs, but it also has lower lows.
Yep.
And so, you know, the iPhone 10 works out to more of a consistent performer. Whereas if you get the Pixel 2 in the perfect conditions, I imagine that doing better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really bizarre. It's just odd.
And yeah, and it's good you called it out. It's good you called it out because you know, and it's good he called out, you know, certain publications like Engadget, you know, for how they misinterpreted it because they haven't investigated it more. They've stated it confidently that it's out of 100 when it's not. You know, there's so much stuff, and it's just you have to be careful, you know. But you know, to the Pixel 2's credit, especially from what I've seen, until I get to test it and put it through my side-by-side camera comparison and fully vet everything myself, for me, you know, what I'm seeing from people in terms of images and video stabilization, to be specific, the Pixel 2's is causing a lot of challenges for all other manufacturers at the minute, which is great for Google because if anyone has ever followed the Nexus brand, Nexus phones were shocking.
Oh my god,
not
the
good for cameras.
On those were just you
just
could
an
tell that was
afterthought.
where they were cutting cost, right?
Yeah, 100%. Nexus phones were just, you didn't buy a Nexus phone
for the camera.
For a camera, you didn't.
Interestingly, on the end of the Pixel 2 article, and I've got it highlighted currently on stream if you're watching. If not, I'll read it.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Reads,
worried about what happens.
Yeah, worried about what happens when we get to 100. Don't be. Our new DxOMark mobile test protocols and scoring system have plenty of headroom for new devices as they are introduced. There is nothing magical about the score of 100, and no reason other cameras can't go past it. We're sure the time will come when they do. And I think that's the kind of thing where, you know, because it is so close to 100, a lot of tech, tech companies were looking at it and assuming it was out of 100, whereas
That's
it's
the word
not.
that you just used,
Yeah, it
assumption.
was the assumption that it was out of 100, as opposed to looking at it and going, oh wait, actually, if we look at the iPhone 10, you can see it's got 101 for photo, which clearly makes it not out of 100.
Yeah. You see, so it's almost like percentage increase where something can be 150% just because it's gone over that mark. You
Yeah,
see, so it's based on that kind of same progressive increase, percentage increase scoring methodology and scale. So this is where, I mean, big credit to Marquez. He did a bang up job on that video.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's great. It's great. It came from pretty much not the biggest, but probably the most influential tech YouTuber
Yeah,
to actually nail that right, get that trending, and get people well educated on it. And actually, it exposed big publications on why maybe big publications are not necessarily always the best place to go anymore. Necessarily, it's not that they're not. Actually, let me rephrase that. It's not that they're not, but where maybe the web video platform is actually a platform to be taken seriously.
yeah.
So it was good. It was good. It was like a big one up for us guys that are trying to make it on this platform as well, that we are serious contenders as well. So
And I think it also functioned as a reminder to, to people that they should look around for reviews. They shouldn't just look at one review and take that as gospel
yeah,
as such, right?
100%.
Because different people have different opinions and they weight
Mhm.
things differently.
Yeah,
And, the fact that, I might get a fact wrong and it be an honest mistake. But if you
yeah,
read 5 reviews, then it doesn't matter because my incorrect fact can go, actually, everyone else says it's 8 gigabytes of RAM, not 6. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right.
yeah,
It was a complete typo. And I then
yeah,
fix it.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Whereas if you only take all your information from one source and they get something wrong, you have no way of checking that. And
Yeah,
that was what it was. People were assuming it was out of 100. Whereas if you'd
yeah,
gotten that out from 5 different sources and whoever it was, I think it might. I don't want to name and shame incorrectly, but I think it was Mashable who was saying it was out of 100.
no, it was Engadget. It was Engadget.
Engadget.
Yeah,
They're owned
it
by the
was
same
Engadget.
company. I'll
Yeah,
take it.
yeah, true,
I think
true.
they're both AOL. So
Yeah,
but yeah, so it was just that scenario where if you were just looking at Engadget, you'd think it was out of 100, but if you looked around, you'd realize it wasn't.
yeah, yeah. It's true. It's true.
Whew.
But yeah, I'm looking to still hunt down a Pixel 2 so I can at least, if not do a proper review on it, do a proper camera side by side and just verify my first hands-on experience with it.
So if you have a Pixel 2 and you're okay with Benjamin borrowing it for a bit, be in touch. Tweet it. Holler at him. Holler. I've never
I'll
said
make
the
it
word
worth your
holler
while.
before, and I never will ever again, but it was totally worth it. Oh. I
Awesome.
want to
Awesome.
I want to stay on the subject of hardware.
Yeah, yeah,
Shift
yeah.
towards OnePlus
Yeah.
because I know that we've been in a call for what, like an hour and a half at this point.
Yeah.
But we're 45 minutes into this podcast. We were talking beforehand, and I briefly mentioned the OnePlus 5T, and you said there was controversy going on around it.
Yeah,
We'll,
so
we'll start off. Let's start off with what's in the show notes, just as a
yeah, what's in the show
just
with
to, just to get us
their
going
parent company.
as such. So OnePlus is set to announce the 5T on the 16th, which is next Friday,
Yep.
next Thursday.
It's Thursday, yeah.
So they're due to unveil it next Thursday. New York, there's an event you can attend, and if you pay like $40 or whatever it is, you can turn up and
Yeah.
go there. Oh man, I wouldn't have gone if it was free. I'm definitely not going because you have to pay for it.
Pay for it.
Right? Like, oh yeah, come pay to see us unveil our phone, and I'm just like, yeah, no.
No, that's cool.
Gonna pass on that one. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the offer, I guess. So that's all well and good, apart from the fact that Oppo announced their R11s this week,
Yep.
which, if you're not aware, the R11 was basically the OnePlus 5. The OnePlus 5 was slightly thinner and the internals were slightly different, but outside of that, it was more or less an identical phone.
Yeah.
Well, Oppo released the R11s this week, or announced it, I should say, and people noticed that it looks eerily similar to some leaked renders of the OnePlus 5T.
100%.
Oops.
100%. Yeah, so there's been big controversies with the 5T. So you probably haven't seen it because you've been away, but one of the Canadian YouTubers, Carl Conrad, actually fully unboxed the phone, uploaded the video, showed it to everyone. Yeah, so basically there's no need to kind of watch the event on the 16th. We've
Bloody
seen
hell.
the phone, everything in its glory, the whole, like, now he has taken down the video, but the video has been downloaded and it's circulating.
It's YouTube,
around.
right? Within 30 seconds of it being up, people had already ripped it off the site.
Yeah, so there's just been a lot of controversy on Twitter where people have just been kind of like not attacking him, but kind of like praising him, but at the same time saying to him like, "What, did you not get your embargo memo or something?"
Yeah, did you forget there's an embargo?
Yeah, so he to his defense, and I'm not naming him to shame him to say that he's anything bad. I love his content. I follow him. I think his content is awesome and it's consistent and stuff. But to his defense, he tweeted and basically said, you know, he didn't receive any embargo documents. So he, in his eyes, felt it was okay to actually do the video, unbox it, show it to people, upload it, you know, which, okay, fair enough. But I just, as a little small fry YouTuber myself, I would automatically kind of assume that if the company directly has sent you the phone, even if they haven't given you an embargo document and the event is on the 16th,
I feel like I would have probably double checked, right? I feel like in that situation, email them, go, but you did mean to embargo this, right? And if they say no, you're like, okay, cool. And you hit publish.
Yeah, you know, so that's where there's question marks on him, that it almost seems like an overexcited amateur move.
Yeah.
But if there wasn't any embargo document, then hey, maybe he felt it was okay enough to do it. But basically, the OnePlus 5T has been fully seen. There will be almost no surprises come the 16th on the first day. Yeah, so practically,
I'm not sure if this is related, but it is in the show notes that the OnePlus 5T was also there was a gallery of the unboxing also on ZDNet, the German version of ZDNet, but ZDNet nonetheless. I'm just wondering if I search it, if it's still up. It is. It's still up. So if you were to go into, hang on. Oh no, it's been taken down.
Yeah. So there's a couple of them that gets taken down for copyright claims and stuff.
So what I'm wondering, so this is whoops. So it says here at this point, ZDNet.de, which is the German, had published a picture gallery for the new OnePlus 5T. This is no longer visible at the request of OnePlus. Again, they seem to have said the same thing, where it contained no cover letter, only a review guide.
Yeah.
Which means it seems like OnePlus are the ones who screwed up here. They forgot to embargo people.
This is it. So this is where it's like
that, and they weren't made to sign an NDA. Those are both
exactly.
You know.
Exactly. You see, so this is where it's 2 and 2. You know, it is a 2 and 2 thing by what I've seen, and I don't want to run ahead of myself and act like I know any details of how, you know, embargoes and NDAs go when you're directly dealing with a manufacturer and stuff like this. So I'm not taking any digs at him, but it's questionable on both sides. Yeah. It's probably a little bit more questionable on OnePlus's side, I think, because I think
without a doubt. Yeah,
you know, this is where I'm coming from.
It's such a, you know, we've had situations where we've been told, you know, I've been made to sign NDAs on like the most trivial stuff, right? And you know, I can't discuss it because I'm under NDA, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But you know, they'll get me to sign an NDA, and then they'll like announce the product like 10 minutes later, and I'll be like, oh, good job, guys. I guess like At least I didn't ruin it 10 minutes before you said it.
So you
I
said
don't
it,
know.
yeah. You know.
Like, were you worried I'd tweet this image directly after taking it? Like, instead of 10 minutes after taking it? Like, there's other stuff here. Like, don't
Yeah.
worry, you're good. What I will say, however, and this is not under NDA, so screw you, Sega, I guess, technically. We were at the PC Gamer Weekender last year. Well, this year, technically, it was in February. So it's basically a year ago. But we were there. And, you know, it's a show about PC games, right? And it's basically a massive show floor with a bunch of different developers.
PC Master Race.
Hell yeah. It's a bunch of developers all showing off their games. And there's a load of indie developers and there are a couple of big names. So Sega were there, Microsoft were there showing off Halo Wars 2 because it was a couple of weeks before the game came out, so they had a playable preview, which was great. So we go over to Sega and we're like, you know, we're filming because we're at this event with press passes. You know, we're allowed to be there filming. And we walk over to Sega and Sega give us this look of like, why are you filming here? And we're like, well, we're press. We're just, you know, getting B-roll footage, walking around, talking. And we were straight up like told off for filming. They were like, unless you're doing an interview or you have our express permission, you are not allowed to film here. And I was like, you do know this is like an open show. Like anyone could rock up with a camera and take a selfie. Like they weren't even showing anything that wasn't already available. Like everything they had there was already released games. And I was just like, you guys aren't serious, are you? And they were like, no, we are deadly serious. You cannot film here. And then so, we walked away. Came back 5 minutes later. They'd put signs up that said no photography. I was like, I was this close to recording B-roll. And then when we came over to ask, being like, no, this is videography, not photography. It's a very different thing. And just like, you know.
Specifically.
Yeah. But it was crazy. Like...
Yeah,
I was like,
but as in, you know, in you adding that, definitely, it's my thoughts lean more onto OnePlus possibly should have handled the whole embargo and NDA communication better by the looks of it to me.
Yeah.
Right. But the honest truth is, there isn't going to be much surprise on Thursday because of that, because it was a proper full-on unboxing, like full-on.
Yeah.
So you saw everything. He mentioned certain specifications. It's like, okay, yeah, you know. But
so I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If this has happened to Apple, right? So if Apple had sent out their iPhones without a cover letter saying don't publish before whatever date, and then people had done it, I am 99% sure that Apple would never send them a device ever again. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you reckon
100%.
OnePlus will do the same? Do you reckon ZDNet and I can't remember the Canadian guy's name? You're gonna have to remind me.
Yeah, Carl Conrad.
Do you reckon neither of them are gonna get a OnePlus device ever again, or do you reckon OnePlus will go, that was our fault?
No, OnePlus will hold up their hands. They're not at that stage. And with what Razer have done with their phone release and how much traction that phone is getting,
that is crazy.
OnePlus need to really, really watch out for what Razer are doing, big time. And I mean that to the core. Because the trap that OnePlus is now falling into is the trap of what Sony do with releasing a new flagship phone every 4 or 5 months that is almost pretty much the same product.
Yeah.
You see, and I reviewed the OnePlus 5 extensively on the channel when I had it. You know, I gave it a little bit of a hard time initially, then went back to correct certain things, you know, because I just felt like how the market had moved. The value proposition on that product has
that was
increased a
bizarre,
lot.
right? Because when it first released, we were all like, that's a bit expensive. And then every other phone has become a lot more expensive. We're like, oh, actually, that's quite all right.
Yeah, I straight went back. Yeah, I straight went back and said, look, I that element of things, honestly, this is not only at the current moment the fastest Android phone on the market, but it's possibly like real world day-to-day use, the fastest phone you can buy.
Because that was the issue that Samsung has always had, right? They've always had powerful phones, but their TouchWiz used to weigh it down, and luckily they're getting better with each version, right?
Yeah.
And I think the Note 8 is the first Samsung device that is truly fast all the time and doesn't hang 100%. Up in the same way that the S7 and S8 did.
100%. I use both. If you can see it in the
Oh,
camera, I use
look at that.
both.
Hey, it's trying to
Right?
scan your irises.
Yep. I use both, and you know, honestly, the difference 2 gigabytes of RAM makes just for having optimization headroom for RAM
Yeah,
management and just consistent. Yeah, honestly, the Note 8 is where I can probably say will be the first Samsung flagship product that will most likely not have any performance degradation issues. I can almost confidently say that just based on so many extreme speed tests that I've seen from all the bigger guys that do it
yeah.
legitly, whether it's Super South, whether it's David Rahimi from Phone Buff, whether it's Everything Apple Pro, who is undeniably more of an Apple bias channel.
The name
you
didn't
know,
give that away.
yeah,
It's like when I read something on iMore, right? I'm like,
yeah,
it's not technically it's not an Apple publication, but when your name is iMore, you can kind of
iMore.
expect that bias there, right?
Yeah, which is fair. It adds the human element of
No,
it,
absolutely.
So they're justified that there's nothing wrong with having a form of bias, but then it's just like
Yes,
the
it's not like they're
objectivity.
called iMore, but they're trying to claim they prefer Android, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's when it starts becoming sketchy, right? If you're like,
sketchy.
our name is iMore, but we're so unbiased, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's not. We still love those channels. It's just
yeah,
they're naturally a bit more lenient to Apple, which is cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, the Note 8 data is like when people say, oh, there isn't much of a difference, I'm like, really? Do you use these phones? Have you pushed them to their limit to really see if there's no difference in terms of day-to-day performance? And another thing, I think it was Paul that I tweeted it to, that whatever Samsung device or even whatever Android device you are using, you should definitely go into developer options, drop the animations to zero point 0.5,
oh yeah,
and it's not only just a night and day difference to the phone, but then literally like the Note 8 runs away with it. So it's yeah,
I'm actually gonna do that right now. Hang on, let's do
trust
this right
me,
now. Hang on.
it's a night. Enable your dev options, drop the animations down to 0.5,
Where are we? Build number.
and
Developer mode has been enabled. I don't know why it was disabled, actually, because it's usually the first thing I turn on. Because I use it to turn on force resizability on apps.
yeah.
Like that's the only reason I use it at this point.
Yeah,
So,
but if you drop the animations, there's 3 settings for the animations.
This has way more than 3. This goes from animation off up to animation is 10x, and you probably won't be able to see it. But
Yeah, I can see it. But basically, animation being off is kind of, bless you. Animation going off is kind of jarring. I don't like it when the animation is completely off. It's very weird. It's very jarring. But 0.5.
0.5 is yeah. Animation off is like it makes you a lot more sensitive to like the slightest of lag as well. Like when there's a slight hiccup, it feels like forever. But just for reference, here it is at. Oh, hang on, let me take up the brightness. That'd be a good idea, George. All right, let's do this. So this is at oh, that was too bright. Good job, George. I'm really good at this, aren't I? So this is at 1x. If I hit that, it's not bad. It's not great though. So if we now go back in here, and so there's 3 separate ones. There's window animation, transition animation, and animator duration.
Yeah.
So if we change those all to 0.5, and then I hit the multitask button again, there, it just feels so much faster.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, whoops. Oh no, what have I done? Ooh, nope. There we are. That's better. Don't mess around in developer options, by the way. It's a bad idea. Just generally. I just accidentally turned on show GPU view updates. So every time something changes on the screen, it starts flashing red, which is really useful. But it just, it's running at the same speed, but because of the speed of the animations, it feels a lot quicker.
Yeah. And like, this is where I was, when I say I was overly impressed with the Razer phone, like,
oh, that phone was so smooth.
I've never I'm just imagining the day I hold that phone, I drop the animation to 0.5 and the screen is running at 120 hertz.
Why didn't we do that at the thing?
I was thinking about it after it, and and this is where it's like when someone like Lou from Unbox Therapy literally keeps plugging the phone into every single other video that he does, if we be like, you guys should not be surprised. Like if you use it,
it is just
and it's
so
like
smooth.
Oh man, I've just it's almost so smooth. It's
I kind of felt
disorientating.
disappointed with my phone afterwards.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I was using my S7 Edge, and I was like, why does it just doesn't feel as it just felt off. It was so bizarre.
And because of this, even not to digress too much, this is where
we can digress. Why not?
Yeah, we can. But this is where OnePlus
it's our podcast. We do whatever the hell we want.
This is where OnePlus need to really watch out for Razer, because it's not that they're sitting on their laurels, but there is no need for them to be releasing a replacement flagship phone every 4 to 5 months. It's different if they have a different product segment, like what LG does and what Samsung does with the V series and the Note series. That's a different product segment. It's not a true flagship replacement to the consumer S range. It's not a true flagship replacement to the consumer G range for LG. And they've made it very clear, right? That's different. It's a different product segment, because I've seen people that confidently say, I just don't want the Note 8. I don't like the S Pen. It's too big. I like the S8. Great. They've got you. That's how they've broken it up. So they are justified to release that particular product 6 months apart. You see, but the 5T is almost like, that flagship killer we were talking about, the OnePlus 5 that you guys queued up for. That's not really the flagship killer. This one is. So sorry if you bought this a month ago, but this is the true flagship killer we wanted to bring out. So it's like, I think it's just more of a slap in the face to the loyalists that they've built up from the OnePlus 1 days till now. So
for me, if the OnePlus 5T had been the first in the T, like if the 3T didn't exist, right, and this was the first time they were doing the T model, I'd be more okay with it. Because I feel like the 5 to 5T jump is a lot larger than the 3 to 3T jump was. Yeah. But now that it's happened a second time round, no one really cares as much, because now it's just annoying.
Yeah, it is. It is so annoying to the fact that, yes, bar the 18:9 aspect ratio, the display resolution is the same. Fingerprint scanner's gone to the back. Unless they are going to put a very good OIS module in there, I don't see what else they can do to really improve on the performance of that phone. It's pretty much a rehash, So
and I'm looking at the
don't know.
specs, and I still prefer the Razer phone to it, right?
Yeah.
It has a larger battery, just as much RAM. Sure, the screen isn't the whole tall, slim, sexy whatever that OnePlus is now doing and that Samsung are doing, but I prefer having those speakers on top and bottom.
Put it this way, if and I said this in my recap of my hands-on video that I did, if you're not going to do an edge-to-edge display design on a phone, own the 16:9 aspect ratio design. Yeah. Own it. When I say own it, like own it to the core, where don't apologize for how big the bezels are. Stick fat speakers there. Make sure that IPS screen, if you're not using OLED, is the best IPS screen that you can put in any phone. And Razer did that. This is where my complaint was with the iPhone 8 Plus. If Apple had called the 8 Plus the 7S, I would have forgiven the fact that they just pretty much did the same thing, because your mind mentally conditions for how S phones are supposed to be, right?
If anything, I think we'd have been complimenting it. If they'd called it, the 7S, we'd have gone, well, between 6 and 6S, they made literally no change. Whereas between the 7 and 7S, it's now got wireless charging. It's got a glass back. Look at all these changes.
Yeah. And where I was having a lot of conversations with people, it's like, oh, but you should know that this is the iteration design of the phone. I'm just like, no, when they call it an iPhone 8, you can't make that excuses for Apple that they couldn't have done it. They released the iPad Pro 10.5. That iPad Pro 10.5 is practically the same size as the 9.7. They slimmed the bezels, put a larger display, up the resolution, and put 120 hertz ProMotion. Obviously, for market reasons, it's called ProMotion. Razer calls it Ultra Motion, but effectively it is 120 hertz. And That is literally like owning, right? So I
Yeah.
had that same mindset that finally Apple with the iPhone 8, the smaller one, are going to go from 4.7 to 5.1, and they're going to give us a 1080p display at least, right? Or something close to a 1080p display. No,
Their
they didn't do that.
their
So you,
resolution, is there a reason for that? Like outside of
yeah,
just being an absolute pain?
yeah, there is. So it's how iOS. It's actually very clever. They map it to the PPI and the DPI scaling of how apps are
Oh, I
built.
see.
Yeah, so it is a very logical reason. There's a reason why they have stuck around that 326 PPI
Yeah.
DPI scaling for a long time. Yes, the plus version is 401, but they scaled it perfectly for that. So it's more for how apps are coded,
Yeah.
which is great. But then again, the resolution on the iPad Pro 10.5 is weird, right? But it's a resolution bump, just like how the iPhone 10
Yeah.
is a weird QHD resolution. So it's not necessarily a true QHD resolution, but it's a bump nevertheless, right? So I'm thinking the Plus was going to go from a 5.5-inch corner-to-corner display to a 5.7 with a slight resolution bump and say, hey, we'll give you ProMotion. I would have been like, wow, this potentially could be a much more noticeable upgrade than the upcoming iPhone 10,
Yeah.
even though the iPhone 10 will have an OLED panel. And I said it, I don't have any concrete like evidence of this, right? But here's my logical reason why they intentionally held back. And I know confidently they held back on that display technologies because it's like, this is our first generation. We've sat down with Samsung or whatever companies are going to build our organic light emitting diode
Yeah.
displays, right? This is what we want specification wise. We want this, we want that, we want this, and we also want True Tone, and we want ProMotion. They're going to be like, well, we've not really developed a high refresh rate for OLED panels yet, so you can't have that. Oh, but
Yeah.
we want to do it for the LCD ones. Why can't we have it so it lines up? They know, and just like what we experienced at the Razer show, even though the phones were running at 90 hertz and you could bump it up to 120 hertz in the settings, they will know that people will notice the beneficial difference of a high refresh rate panel compared to an OLED panel immediately.
Yeah. And I
Is it?
think if you have them side by side, then you can see the difference. And we had that. We were comparing the S8 to the Razer phone, right? And when
Yeah.
you were just looking at the Razer phone, it was like, oh, the screen's really good and it's so smooth. Whoops, and it's so smooth. And it was only once you pulled out the Samsung that you went, actually, the blacks, and you could see the difference in the OLED, and it was, the Samsung was brighter. But until you'd seen the Samsung right there, it seemed great. It seemed just as good. Well, not just as good, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not even that it seemed it like in its outright use of how it responds and the speed of it and how not just it made everything feel faster, it made everything faster. That is more of an immediate noticeable benefit than simply saying that the screen has OLED, especially with how Apple's iOS system calibrates display colors. And Erica Griffin, that I don't know if you follow Erica Griffin, I can't even say her name. She really breaks down display technology really, really well. And she did the same. And how iOS calibrates display colors is slightly different to what you expect. So the OLED screen on the iPhone 10 is phenomenal, but it's not that it's not as punchy. It's kind of like a sweet spot calibration.
Yeah.
It's not gone for the overly saturatedness that you expect from OLED, but it is a lot more punchy in terms of how it produces the colors and a wide color gamut compared to what their LCD displays do, which is normal. That's what you expect from OLED.
Yeah. But no, they've I have to say it is, resolution aside and notch aside, it is a very good panel.
Yeah, 100%.
And and outside of the fact that it doesn't work in the cold. Have you heard about that?
Oh, the Canadians have been going crazy. The Canadians have been going crazy.
Oh man, that was because it's Apple's first OLED display.
Yeah.
And I was like waiting for I knew that something would go wrong with it, right? Because there's always something wrong with a device, right?
Yeah.
And there's always something gate, right? And I was like, what's it going to be? And I was like, in my head, I was like, I bet it's going to be display related. And it just doesn't work in the cold. It just
No,
stops registering touches.
no, no. But it's a good display. You know, arguably from if it's been confirmed or not, definitely looks like Samsung are the ones that are producing on the mass scale for them. You know, they've Apple and Google have invested a lot of money into LG's OLED, you know, mobile panel to be produced on a larger scale, but they're still not going to be able to catch up to what Samsung are churning out at the rate of being able to supply companies like OnePlus, Samsung's own devices, you know, Google's own Pixel 2 devices, then Apple's at such a large and consistent rate. You know, that's not something that they've developed overnight. That is something that they've worked out from when OLED panels were really, really inferior and kind of like a concept, especially from the Galaxy S1 and S2 days, because people speak of OLED having superior brightness as one of the original traits. No, OLED panel brightness, and I've been a Galaxy S2 user from then. OLED panel brightness was the worst experience I've ever had on any device. Seriously, like brightness was not one of the best traits. It was not. It was literally like the thing that made me go back to using an iPhone for a while, because I couldn't use my S2 and my S3 outdoors because the maximum brightness was just not good, you know. So
I think we've also kind of gone the other way now, because I feel like they're almost like the lowest brightness isn't low enough.
yeah,
You know, like I've had occasions where like I just have a third party app on my phone that like puts a fake filter over the front of the screen, right, that dims it further, because I'll be using it at night and like I'll like hit the button, I'm like, oh my god, why is it so bright? So they've really gone the other way. However, what I do want to point out, and I should mention, this video is by Square Trade. They are a phone insurance company, so they kind of make money on telling you that a phone breaks really easily. But much like DxOMark, they have a process that they use for all devices. So it has those kind of checks and balances in place. But they might exaggerate it a touch. They have declared the iPhone 10 as the most breakable phone of all time.
that's believable. That's the reason why it's believable, again, because of Jerry Rig Everything Zach. He's verified it over and over again with every single drop test. We're not affiliated with him. I'm not affiliated with him, but check out his channel. He's pretty much verified
go do that. He's
it.
Great. And if you're watching us, you probably already don't know who he is. But if you don't, go do it. He's great.
Yeah.
He makes constant Apple digs. You'll love it.
Yeah.
They are the best things.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. But
go check him out.
That's not over an exagger. It's not an over exaggeration. Any company that uses glass, don't matter how big the gorilla is on that glass.
Can I just point this out, right? And you know, if I wanted to replace this, it's a lot easier than if it was on an iPhone 10. But here's the front of it. Look at those beautiful cracks. And then here's the back of it. Look at all.
And even my Note, if you see my Note 8 as well, I'm not sure if you can see it, but that suffered a crack.
Yeah.
So
it's I am not a fan of the glass sandwiches. Like I prefer the build of a Razer phone as well. The fact that it was all metal, I prefer that.
Yeah, it reminded me of the principal build construction of carbon fiber. It wasn't heavy. It didn't feel heavy, but it felt like a tank. It felt like it weren't trying to. This is what I mean about going into that phone. And I know we keep coming back to that phone, but it's such a sleeper phone and it leaves such an impression. And a lot of people have been left with an impression of that phone.
Yeah,
is they owned the non-elegance of that phone. That is not a fashion contest phone. It's not the most elegant. That phone design is not going to appeal to everybody. It's not going to be the standout fashion contest win phone, but it owns what it's trying to build. It owns it. Like, it owns the build quality. It owns the speakers. It owns the 16:9 aspect ratio with the correct resolution. It owns the fact that, hey, if we can't get access to the quality of what OLED is going to bring to the table, we are going to go for the best LCD panel in a mobile phone, period.
Yeah.
You see, so this is where it's like, I loved what they did. They just owned every aspect of what they had control over. and they owned it and did it super well. Based on impressions, they did it
Yeah.
superbly well.
We'll find
You
out
know?
in 5 days. We'll find out next Friday.
Yeah. I've already called it based on my experience that I had with the OnePlus 5 when I reviewed it, and it pretty much solidified that the general rule of thumb is don't do a dual camera if you can't do it well enough.
Yeah.
I.e., don't do a dual camera if you can't put optical image stabilization in there. That is the foundation of making sure that you have a chance for your camera to perform well. And I just and again, I'm not going to be the only one that have said it. Unbox Therapy has said it. A lot of other initial hands-on people have said it that have had early access to the phone that have used it. Have pretty much said that the camera will most likely be a letdown. So credit to the guys on the Razer shop floor. They were very transparent. I asked them, and they did state certain limitations that are going to be in the camera module that are going to come in software updates, which I question them on. So, for example, as a heads up, most likely when the reviews come out, there is no stabilization in 4K. So you're not even going to get electronic stabilization in 4K. It only works in 1080p, and if on a scientific level, people are not too sure why OIS is important, it's not just for stabilization, but low light, long exposure. Exposure times are very important when you're working with in-body stabilization. So that is just to stop, less shake, and just to allow it to work with the aperture lens as well as the pixel size of the actual pixels in micron. I'm getting a bit technical, but like it's important, so the camera might not be, the best of the best. It probably won't be, but everything else, they kind of just owned it.
Yeah.
So
and I found what Marquez's first impressions were that really got to me. He said, they made the phone to be as great for gaming as possible, and that just so happens to also make it a great device in general.
Yeah, for everyday use.
Yeah.
Everyday use, and I did a video on dash charging versus quick charging,
right,
on my channel as well. And just for the fact that for the longest time, and what people don't realize is that the whole open standard, in inverted commas, which is still kind of like royalties to Qualcomm because they developed the technology. Quick Charge 4.0 has been there from the beginning of the year, or has been there from every phone that uses the Snapdragon 835. But it's not just the processor. Like, you need the correct circuitries within the phone for it to communicate, because it behaves like it's like a communicating handoff, right?
Yeah.
So just the circuitry's not been there, and the fact that we've been waiting for that to happen for a while, and Razer of all companies ends up being the first company that implements confidently out of the box, just to state, the Quick Charge 4 Plus impressed me.
And the thing that I found interesting is that in half an hour it gets whatever it was, like 2200 milliamp hour, something like that, within half an hour. Yeah. And that's higher capacity than the iPhones. Like,
yeah. And even pointing into account the advantage and the disadvantage of how Quick Charge behaves. Shameless plug, check my recharge, comparison test that I did on my channel.
Do it.
I pretty much explained the difference of dash and quick charging and how they both behave. The fact that in an hour, and that is the most important period of time, is up to that 1 hour. After that, quick charging doesn't really matter to a certain extent, to a certain degree.
Yeah.
In an hour, 3,400 milliamps, I really want to test that, because that is bigger than most capacity phones on the market, right? So that in itself speaks volumes for just the impression. And I'm speaking about the impression. The impression Razer left was, we are just going to own what we have control over and own it well. So that's the part that really, really impressed me. So the company that they need to, there is imperfections, like I said, lack of OIS, lack of wireless charging, lack of ingress protection. As much as I've pretty much said that the no headphone jack is a trend that is happening for the sake of happening.
Actually, I have a question on the no headphone. Hang on, let me just adjust my.
Ask away.
I have a question on the headphone jack thing, because we mentioned this in passing last episode. I want to get your opinion on it, because we mentioned it was THX certified.
Oh yeah.
And Carl Pei may or not. What? Why did my name Carl Pei jump into my head as I went to say that?
Ming Lang Tang. And
Min-
well done for getting an interview with
oh,
him,
that
man.
was
That was
great. That
awesome.
was
That was awesome.
so
And
good.
that's credit to him as
Yeah,
a pretty
absolutely,
much
without a
down to
doubt.
earth CEO as well. That's cool of him. Like, you
Yeah,
know,
no, that was great for us.
that
But
that was that
yeah,
was that was that was awesome.
but you know, I was almost tempted to question him on it, and then I didn't end up having the time. But you know, Min Lang Tan is also the CEO of THX, so his own company certified his own hardware, and I'm just like, like
Another
how much?
DxO situation.
Yeah, like really, this seems a bit dodgy.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like, ugh, come on, like people are gonna question it, but this is it. It's like you watch other reviews to gauge an idea, and then the ultimate acid test is to experience yourself. And I did state it that the shop floor was so noisy, I couldn't fully verify it, but even that short space of just being able to test that demo, I was blown away that in that
those
noisy
speakers were
environment I
crazy.
could hear it. And it's like the best what I could tell people is like it is like having built-in Bluetooth speakers.
Hmm.
It's That's the only way I can describe it to you, and that is almost enough of a game when Hate started doing boom sound until they kind of changed how they implemented it, before, and it's yeah, the THX thing is the same as how like it's almost like another one the DxO Mark situation again,
Yeah,
but yeah, you kind of have to like at the same time be like based on initial impressions, if you do take it with a certification, it is best speakers so far that we've ever heard on a phone.
they
So
were crazy good, and they were drowning out our conversation,
yeah,
which I
yeah,
found crazy because
yeah,
we were talking. There was music going on, so we were talking over the music, and there was a guy next to us doing the speaker test, and like that was louder than the music.
yeah,
It was crazy.
yeah. It's So yeah, that is until I get to review it, do my camera comparison, camera test side by side, and review. I'm feeling to call it the sleeper hit of 2017. It's not going to take out the Samsungs, the Apples, and all those stuff. But for me, I think without them having to mention anything, the company that they're going to worry the most is OnePlus. And
Yeah,
OnePlus, so far, based on the leak where the phone pretty much looks the same, unless they're going to announce some next level feature. And
maybe
this is
that
where
maybe that was the trick all along.
maybe.
They actually have something huge planned. Oh, oh,
Oh,
oh, oh!
it's a live drop
It's all
test,
falling
everyone.
apart here.
The live drop test.
That's not what we want to do. That's for sure.
So the best way I can basically put it is this, right? Where I'm worried about where Carl Pei and other co-founder of OnePlus, they are really hyping up the camera of this OnePlus 5T, right?
Yeah.
I wonder, yeah, they did what people forget is they did the same thing with the OnePlus 5. Same thing. They publicly announced we're working with DxO Mark to make sure that the camera of the OnePlus 5 is going to be absolutely phenomenal. No, you know, for me, for all the hype that they put behind it, the OnePlus 5 camera was overshadowed by the 3T camera just because of the fact that the 3T had a single lens that had optical image stabilization, and you were able to just use it more consistently and more confidently, So I'm hoping all the hype that they've put behind might be the saving grace of why the 5T, it's worth that basically when the 5 came out June, July,
Yeah,
that
somewhere around there.
yeah, that 4 or 5 months later, you're gonna replace that flagship phone, So we'll see. We'll see. I'll hold my breath and see.
What I will say is that it's confirmed to have the same price as the current OnePlus 5, which I guess is saying in their favor.
Yeah, they would have had to have done that because, in this short space of time, they've literally done this so they don't get forgotten. They
Yeah.
really they just didn't want to be forgotten, you know. And credit to, you know, guys like Mr. Who's the Boss, who is now officially the biggest, you know, YouTuber in the UK, passing Super Saf. But they're both awesome.
Don don don.
You know, it was just a funny statistic
I saw
to watch.
Saf walk past us at the event, and I was going to say hi to him, but he looked kind of busy, so I decided not to, and then I kind of regretted it afterwards.
Oh man, you should reach out to guys like that, man. They're cool. As busy as they are, they kind of expect that kind of, you know, reception at, you know, and if you're talking about Razor event, one, I didn't know that he was there.
Yeah,
Two,
he'd posted it on his Snapchat, and I actually messaged him. I reached out to him. I was like, oh, because he said he was going to London. I'm switching my light if you're wondering why I'm in darkness right now.
No, that's cool.
So, you know, he said that he was going down to London. So I messaged him. I was like, oh, you're going down for the Razor event? He was like, yeah. I was like, oh, cool. I'll see you there. And he was like, yeah, see you there. So
yeah, you should. I've realized those type of guys, you know, like Gadgets Boys. He was at the event as well, and I reached out to him and communicated with me on Twitter, and it was there. He was cool. They tend to be, they adjust their minds to kind of get that reception. So yeah, what I think, unless they genuinely give off like a douchebag kind of response and vibe. To be fair,
I mean, those two specifically don't, but there are people who do.
Yeah,
and that's worth noting.
Yeah. So unless you genuinely get that vibe, yeah, do reach out, you know. And I always like to be proven wrong, because I always feel like it's better to be proven wrong and to be impressed with a product than to have maybe like a negative preconception because of how they're approaching it. And then you're right about it, because then you're almost disappointed, because it's like you want this company to do well because of how they've built up to that point, you know, and you don't want them to fall by the wayside. But at the same time, if you're not careful, there's always someone that will come at your heels. And I feel Razer's the company that's done that. So OnePlus need to be very, very careful. They need to be very, very careful, especially with how, honestly, not to sound like a broken record, how the YouTube market and how everyone has responded to it has been very, very positive. Very positive, where it's like the downsides of the phone are almost being overlooked and forgotten about, in inverted commas, you know, which is a very good thing. You know, which is a very good thing. So we'll see. We'll see. 17th of November.
We've been going for an hour and a half, which is on the longer side of podcast territory of our podcast. Yeah, and I'm sure we could go for another hour and a half. Yeah. However, we started about an hour late, which makes it like 10:30 right now. And I'm sure you want to sleep at some point. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
It's been awesome. It's been awesome.
Let the people know, where's the best place to find you. Where should they go? Where should they look?
Definitely Twitter. I live on Twitter. Twitter engagement for me is night and day. So follow my Twitter handle, which is LOT Reviews BA, all as one, LOT Reviews BA. Definitely, you know, youtube.com/lover of tech, all as one word. The links will be in the description.
Yeah, links are in the description. They're also in the show notes. So if you go into the show notes, they're there as well. So make sure to go check that out.
Consider subscribing if you enjoy my style of content.
Do it.
You know, go check it out. If it suits your style, subscribe. Don't feel forced to. But yeah, I would 100% appreciate your subscription. And I do weekly videos, and it will be an absolute pleasure and honor. So no, thanks you for having me, George.
Thank you for being on. It's been a great conversation, and we'll hopefully have you on soon. If you guys want to listen to the Snappy-Tech podcast, we have some news that I need to announce really quickly. I'm actually moving out to Georgia in a couple of weeks for a couple of months. So I will be going out there until probably early February. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be exciting. But it means that because I'm going to be 4 hours ahead of the UK, we will have to change the podcast time. Provisionally, it looks like it's going to be roughly 5 p.m. English time.
Okay.
So it'll be moved forward by a few hours. That will all be confirmed next week during that podcast. However, for right now, if you like this video, make sure to click like. If you want to see our next show, go to snpy.tech/live, which will currently link you to this, because this is where we're live. How come? Good question. It's because I'm going to be working in a TV station. I'm going to be helping out at a TV station there. I'm volunteering at a local TV station, so it should be fun.
Awesome. Wow. I mean, he dropped that on me last minute. So
I told him like 2 minutes before we went live. I was like, oh, by the way, I have an announcement to make like near the end of the podcast.
Me and George pretty much only just recently met, and then he's dropped this bombshell.
Yeah,
so
it's.
I don't know how regularly I'll be on the podcast because obviously real world needs and stuff. But
yeah, absolutely. No, it'll be great to get you on occasionally. It'll be great. We have to have you on again though at some point.
Yeah,
probably
point,
me,
definitely.
you, like Paul, and someone else. I think it'd be great to have like a panel discussion as we did like a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, panel discussion is something I definitely want to be jumping onto. And
awesome.
No, Snappy-Tech family, man, stay awesome. Thank you for having me. And
check all the links in the description. Go do it, and we'll see you when we're live next week. Bye.
Later.